Alright, this is Books with Brett. Today we are reading one of the short stories from M.I. Blue. This is Michael's Little Sister by C.S. Adler. For David, my good friend and Cape Cod neighbor. Michael's 10-year-old sister wasn't home yet when he got there after his 7th period physics lab. That was odd, but he didn't have to worry about it too much. Becky was probably crouched down behind some bush, totally absorbed in watching a curious insect eating or procreating or fighting for survival. Anyway, he had other things on his mind. He looked up Walt's number and dialed it fast before he lost his nerve. Walt, it's Michael. I know who it is. Walt's deep voice was full of counterpoint that it seemed to mean more than he was saying. I'm calling to apologize, Michael said. He bit his lip against the tremor in his voice. Good, you're forgiven. Well, can we talk about it? You're not afraid I'll contaminate you? You said I was forgiven. He wasn't going to take any grief from this guy, even if he was a hotshot senior. Sure, Michael had backed off, but who wouldn't? Associating with Walt meant getting labeled, and the label might not fit. Probably didn't fit, Michael reassured himself. Right, Walt said agreeably. When you're right, you're right. I apologize for the dig. So, okay, bring your clarinet over tonight. After the jam session, you and I can talk. I'd like that. I mean, I really would, but my mother works at the hospital switchboard nights, and I have to stay with my little sister. You mean you're stuck in every night? Not on weekends, just school nights. Okay then, I'll send the guys home early and come to your house, say around 10. Your little sister should be Betty by then, right? She will be. The cool note Michael had intended came out anxiously and breathy. He chewed his lip and asked, Do you know how to get to me? I've known where you've lived for a long time, Michael. Again the counterpoints. Michael's heart squirmed in an agony of delight. Rumors or not, Walter Turner didn't notice every lowly junior. He had the urge to call up Wendy to ask if she thought Walt might be interested in him because he played the clarinet, but he couldn't call Wendy, not after this weekend. Thinking of that night depressed him. For the 10th time, Michael asked himself how it had happened. Wendy Carr had been his girlfriend for 3 years, ever since he helped her get her locker open the first day of high school. And then Wendy had whipped cream skin and chuckling laugh that was infectious. Why then hadn't kissing her ever thrilled him as much as the unspoken meanings in Walt's voice? Forget it, or Wendy had kicked him out for good Saturday night. Forget it, she told him. You don't want me, Michael. I didn't turn you on. He should have never pulled back when she wanted him to touch her there. He should have never pulled back, even though she startled him and he couldn't help his reaction. No other boy would have pulled back at the sight of Wendy's naked body. No other boy that was normal, that is. Feeling slightly nauseous, Michael went to the refrigerator for some Coke. It was Mom's stomach ailment remedy. Before she'd gotten health care coverage with her second job, she'd avoided taking them to the doctor, and the medicine cabinet was stuffed with home remedies she tried on them. Luckily, neither Becky or him was ever very sick. The Coke didn't help. Michael tried to remember if he'd eaten lunch. Lunch was when Walt had joined him in the sunny alcove behind in the courtyard outside the cafeteria, where Michael had gone to eat his sandwich alone rather than face Wendy and her friends. He was afraid she'd have told him. Maybe not, though. He hoped not. So, Walter had said, I understand you're pretty good on the clarinet. A bunch of us get together to play at my house now and then. You interested? I don't know, Mike had hedged. The rumor was Walt was gay. He didn't look gay to Michael. He was tall and well built, with formidable eyebrows above those sharply intelligent eyes. And he moved like a tiger on the soccer field, where he was a star. That was along with being the star in the drama club's modern version of Hamlet and being an honor student. Don't know what? Walt asked. Why you're asking? I mean, is it just because I play clarinet, or... Walt's eyes narrowed. I didn't ask you to go study, Michael, he said, but the anger faded his way and his lip curled up in a lopsided smile as he added, just for a date. I've got a girlfriend, Michael had said. He heard his own awkwardness and hated it. Walt's smile stayed put. How come you're not eating lunch with her today? Isn't she treating you all right? We just had a fight. Anyway, there are other girls. Weak defense, Michael thought. What he should have done is tell Walt it was none of his business. You don't know yet, do you? Walt had murmured in a deep, amused voice. Know what? Who you are. A kindness softened Walt's eyes as he said, Well, don't worry, Michael. You're not alone. Then he sauntered off. Watching him go, Michael's heart beat at breakneck speed. He hadn't been at ease with himself since. Was he giving off some kind of scent that Walt had zeroed in on him so soon after the fiasco with Wendy? At 3, Becky still wasn't home, so Michael called the neighbor, whose garden was her favorite hunting ground for bugs. No answer there. Who should he call next? Last year, when she was 9, Becky had had a friend, a Korean girl, who had helped her to collect the moss and plants and sticks for the terrariums filled with live insects that lined the shelves of Michael had built Becky for her birthday. He Chung had moved away at the end of the summer, and Becky had given her prized possession, a slim turquoise-colored beetle, shiny as enamel, that she had found in a vacant lot behind the school. You'll make another friend, Michael had promised his little sister, to chase the sadness that had wilted her for weeks. No, I won't. He Chung was the only one that liked me, Becky said. You're not that different, Becky. Yes, I am. I'm different, but it's okay, Michael, because I have you. Her fern-green eyes told him without words how wonderful he was. They had always been close. Becky had been a baby in Mom's arms when their father had been killed on the dangerous intersection on Route 7, the last one to get it there before they installed the traffic light that people had been demanding for years. After Dad died, Mom was always working and too tired to read picture books to a quiet little girl, or play Candyland with her, or listen to the songs Becky learned in kindergarten. Michael had done that. He'd pasted on the Band-Aids and kissed the boo-boos and washed all their t-shirts and socks in the ancient washing machine that kept breaking down and tearing holes in things. At 3:30, Michael called the only other place he could think of, the elementary school. The school secretary remembered Michael, and she chatted with him fondly before informing him that Becky had been sent to detention. I'm surprised she didn't reach you, Michael. I told her to call you. Were you on the phone? Anyway, she'll get out and be home soon. Don't worry, dear. She's safe. You wouldn't want to tell me what she got in trouble for. Becky was so careful to obey all the rules that she had even forgot to do her that she never even forgot to do her homework, something Michael had been known to forget frequently. I'll let her tell you herself, the school secretary said. She was right, of course, Michael thought. With Becky accounted for, he went back to thinking about himself. You don't know who you are yet, do you? Walt had said. Michael had always thought he'd known. He was the good son. Mom always said that. I don't know how I managed it without you, Michael. You're such a good son. He was the musical one, the kid who could play any tune by ear on a piano, even though they'd never had the money to own one. The clarinet had been his combination birthday Christmas present last year. He went for it now and fitted it together and blew softly into the mouthpiece. The music soothed him as it always did. Once he was in the music, it didn't matter who he was. He was the maker of sounds that filled the air with a jungle full of hidden tropical birds, high notes and low, mellow as sunshine, soft as the spongy forest floor, mysterious. Becky came in through the kitchen door, the door they were supposed to keep locked and never did. She perched on the step stool with her books in her lap and said shyly, Hi, Michael. He lowered his clarinet. With what a wispy little thing Becky was. She was as fragile as one of her damsel flies. So how did you get in trouble? He asked to get it over with. You know already? I called the school to find out where you were. She buried her face in her arms and scrunched up her knees, making her shape into a lump draped with fronds of limp brown seaweed hair. Come on, he said. It can't be so bad. Everybody gets in trouble sometime or other. What happened? I can't tell you. You hungry? I saved you 2 cookies. I'm not hungry. Okay, he said with a shrug. I guess you don't trust me. Oh, Michael, I trust you. You know I trust you, but just not that much, huh? I punched a kid in lunch, she burst out, unable to bear his accusation. Why? She shrugged and wouldn't answer. Well, then who was it? Wendy's brother. That big ape? You punched him? I had to. He called you a name, Michael. What name? He was afraid he knew, but he had to hear, just the way he used to have to poke a loose tooth with his tongue. Becky didn't want to tell him. It took some coaxing to get it out of her. He said you were a fag. Oh, said Michael, although it was what he suspected, the plug pulled out of his stomach. You're not, Michael, are you? Becky asked. That she needed to ask shocked Michael so much he blurted out fiercely, Of course not. Good. Becky's sigh of relief was huge for such a small girl. Well, why shouldn't she believe him? He'd never lied to her, and he might not be lying now. It could still just be a mistake. I'd like the cookies now, I think, she said. Mom called at 6, as she usually did, to check up on them. Spaghetti with clam sauce again, he told her when she asked what they were having for dinner. Don't you two ever get tired of spaghetti? Mom asked. There's hamburger meat in the fridge. Becky liked spaghetti. It was easier to let Becky's food taste determine what they ate, because she didn't eat at all unless what was offered appealed to her. She'd go without food for days until he feared she was starving to death. For 1 solid year he remembered having bananas with every meal. Then they'd gone through the cereal and milk phase. Spaghetti was a step up from that. When Mom had her days off, she cooked mostly chicken and hamburger and beans. She was a terrible cook. Even before she'd taken on the night job on the switchboard at the hospital to supplement their income from her hairdressing, she'd been a terrible cook. Michael did better. Mom claimed he did everything well. She wanted him to get great marks in school and go to Harvard and become a doctor. Michael found getting great marks tedious. He could do it. He just didn't want to give up his friends and his music and his thinking time, which is what it would take. Anyway, what he wanted was to do something with music. He didn't care what. Being a disc jockey might be fun. Do you have time to play a game with me tonight, Michael? Becky asked as they washed the dishes together in companionable silence after their spaghetti supper. He didn't have time if he was going to make notes for the report on Chinese pottery for Global Studies 2 before Walt came, but she had punched out Wendy's big little brother on his behalf, so he said, Sure, Scrabble or cards? Clue maybe, or Risk. Those were the games he liked. He wondered why she was trying to please him. They played Clue, but she didn't seem to care if it was Miss Scarlet in the kitchen with the knife or Professor Plum somewhere else with the gun. What's the matter, Becky? She couldn't tell him, though. It had always been hard for her to tell things, even to him. Your little shadow, friends called her for the way she hung on him and looked up to him and did what he told her without argument. But she'd never had a father. He was Becky's father brother. Most of the time he didn't mind. He liked that Becky depended on him, and he did his best to take care of her. 9:30 was her usual bedtime, but tonight she kept delaying, as if she knew he wanted her out of the way for Walt. She dragged the game out, reluctant to take her shower so he would come to read her a bedtime poem from the 100 Best Poems book he'd bought her. After that, the rest of the evening belonged to him. Usually he waited up for Mom, who liked to tell him what she'd had to put up with at work, and hear his and Becky's news of the day. Finally, at 10, Walt was due to arrive. Michael said, none too gently, "Becky, a friend of mine's coming over pretty soon. How about calling it a night, huh?" "A girlfriend?" "No, a boyfriend." She looked at him carefully. "Do I know him?" "No, he's a new friend. He wanted me to come to his house and play my clarinet. He's got a musical group that meets there, but I told him to come here." "Because of me?" He shrugged. She got the message, swallowed hard, and headed off to bed. Just as she called him for her nightly reading ritual, Walt rang the bell. Michael let Walt in, then went to Becky's room to say, "Good night, little sister. I'll read you a long poem tomorrow night, okay?" She nodded, accepting that she'd forfeited her poem through her own tardiness. When Michael returned to the living room, Walt was rifling the magazines on the rack next to the big armchair where Mom liked to curl up. They were old magazines, back issues from the beauty parlor. She liked reading about the love lives of famous people and movie stars. "Interesting reading material," Walt said. "Yeah, sure." Michael wasn't about to put his mother down by saying the trashy publications were her taste. "So what kind of music do you listen to?" Walt asked. Michael went for his tape deck. He'd put on a jazz piece recorded from his favorite Thursday afternoon radio program. Walt sat down on the frayed wine velvet couch to listen. Michael sat in his mother's chair. "Are you afraid of me?" Walt asked when the tape ended. "No," Michael said. "I just don't know what you want with me." "Friendship," Walt said. "I think you're a very appealing guy, and you're pretty confused right now." "I don't understand how you know that," Michael said slowly. "I've been watching you." "That's always the way it is, Michael. Everyone knows before you do." "Knows what?" Walt just laughed and patted the cushion next to him. Walt found himself getting up and moving over to the couch, even though an alarm bell was ringing in his chest. It was Walt who selected the next tape. When he came back to his place on the couch, he laid his arm across Michael's shoulders. Michael shivered at the touch, but didn't move. Was it true then? Michael asked himself. Becky had punched that kid in the nose for calling her brother a fag, but then she'd asked. She'd wanted to hear him deny it as if she wasn't absolutely sure. How could everybody know when he didn't know himself? When Walter kissed him, it was the strangest sensation, like a bee buzzing over a flower, natural and summer sweet. When he'd kissed Wendy, it had been low-tide and sticky. That was it then, wasn't it? He was a fag. In the morning, Mom woke him to say, "Becky won't get up. She's saying she's not going to school. I took her temperature, but nothing's wrong with her. You want to go talk to her, Michael? I have to get to work." He told his mother not to worry and went off to the bathroom. What now? In the mirror, he saw the same old face, an expressive face with well-defined cheekbones and a broad forehead. His eyes were good, beautiful, girls said, liquid brown with golden highlights. Fag, he said to himself. Fag, gay, fairy, fruit, homo. Why did this happen to him? He shuddered and washed his face and brushed his teeth. He didn't need to shave yet. His skin was as smooth as a girl's. Suddenly he hated how smooth his skin was. Next he had to go to Becky's room, but he didn't know what to say to her. What could he say? He had lied to her yesterday for the first time in their lives, but if he told her the truth now, she'd hate him. She would think he was a monster. It could damage her for life to find out her father she adored was queer. Maybe he should tell Walt to go find himself another friend. If he fought it, he might make it change. Call up Wendy and apologize and tell her he was crazy about her and that she go out with him again. Yeah, maybe he should try that. He could make himself be what he was not. "Michael?" It was Becky calling him. He found her sitting in her chair by her bedroom window, which looked out on the wall of the brown shingled house that shouldered up to theirs. Her knees were drawn up inside her nightgown. She wore flounced flannel nightgowns year-round. The insects were crawling around quietly in the old jelly and mayonnaise and spaghetti sauce jars on her shelves. The room was dark and quiet as a cave. "Becky, you gotta go to school." "I can skip if I want." "No, you can't. I saw you last night with that guy." "Walter?" "Yeah, you let him kiss you." Michael flinched. "I'm sorry, Becky," he cried. "I'm really sorry. I wish... But I can't help it. I'm not sure yet, but maybe I might be." "You shouldn't have lied to me," she said. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't sure." She considered. Then her eyes grabbed his and held him tight. "It's okay, Michael," she said. "You can't help it if you're different. It's like me. I try to like the same things other girls like so they'll like me, but I really hate silly parties and TV shows." She sighed heavily. Then she said, "I guess we're both different, you and me." His eyes filled up, and he went to her blindly and hugged her. "Becky, I love you," he said. Gratitude filled him, set him aglow, because he'd always thought he had been the one saving her life, and here she was saving his.